It was a very hectic day. The entire hall was crowded to ask for the autograph of a famous author who wrote the book The Imposter. An excited girl proudly displayed a book autographed by a famous author to the person behind her. The entire hall was packed with people waiting for their turn to have their favorite book signed. The reason for such a lively book signing session was because the author was really handsome, to be honest, and extremely talented. His name was Leo. Leo looked up while he was signing his name and noticed that something was wrong. It was due to the arrival of a reporter that Leo was not informed of to prepare for. The reporter asked him a question that caught him off guard. Reporter Max seized the opportunity to inquire about Leo's relationship with a female author named Alice. When Leo heard the reporter's question, he suddenly stopped. The entire hall seemed to be silent, and Leo was still hesitating until he broke out in a cold sweat. She's a friend of mine, but we haven't seen each other for a long time, Leo said. Max answered, knowing from experience that it was a lie. He stalked Leo. He believed the truth was still a mystery. Max dragged a half smile out of his lips as he looked over at Leo. He's been looking into the case for a long time. The female author Alice went missing after a potion swap case and was undoubtedly connected to Leo. He speculated that Leo had hidden Alice somewhere and used her work to make himself loads of money. The two cars were both driving in the same direction for a long time until they reached an empty street, at which point Leo's car abruptly turned right, surprising Max, following him. Max was confident that his judgment was correct. It was an abandoned house. There was a murder a month ago, and the police had blocked off the area. Nobody was sure why he came here. Leo came to a halt as he entered the abandoned house and raised his hand to touch the red scratches on the dark, old wall. His actions were unusual. Max continued to deduce that the location was deserted, but not ideal for arresting someone. A few moments later, Leo walked out of the house slowly. Then Leo walked to his house, picked up an object, and continued on his way. Max was very curious about his actions. Leo didn't seem to notice anyone else around. He was holding something strange in his hand. Max was taken aback by what Leo was going to do next, and he began to wonder about the object Leo was holding in his hand. The object which Leo was holding had a card-like shape and color. The strange thing was that there was an X printed on it, and suddenly a very mysterious thunder rang out. Nobody knew if it had any effect, but mysterious nonetheless. According to Max, Leo seemed to have relocated to an abandoned house in the suburb, which was the ideal location for evil deeds. Max tried to keep a close eye on Leo to see what he was up to. Max believed Alice was most likely trapped inside the abandoned house. When Leo stepped inside, the card in his hand began to glow strangely, and his face darkened and became more sinister than ever. Max was standing outside. His hand was clinging to the closed door bar. His eyes were widening as he witnessed the strange event. Max didn't seem to believe his eyes when he saw the strange thing happening right in front of him. From the card, there was a bright light that gradually became sharper as it merged into a strange-looking man who was holding a baseball bat. Suddenly the man swung his fist and smacked Leo on the head. with no reaction or retaliation. The man kept grabbing Leo's hair. He didn't need to use much force to gently pull Leo away. He eventually placed Leo on a wooden table. He was holding a knife in his hand as he stood there. Max was so terrified by what he saw that his legs stiffened and he couldn't move. The man held the knife high, as if he contained a ferocious and terrifying killing intention. Suddenly, he stabbed the knife into Leo's neck, but Leo abruptly opened his eyes and awoke, causing him to stop his hand. Max witnessed everything, which confused him. What exactly was it? Leo awoke suddenly and he was staring at the apparition with a strangely smug smile. Max was terrified and panicked after witnessing everything. Max realized he needed to retreat quickly as he ran back, or he'd be in big trouble. Leo tried to be gentle, slowly backing away without making a sound. His face flushed with fear, and he was dripping with sweat. After a while, Leo stepped out from inside as if nothing had happened, and the other man had also disappeared. Max was perplexed. How could a man appear from that X card? Alice, contrary to his expectations, was not inside at all. Max carefully connected all of the key points of the topic. The first was the strange death of Arian, Alice's close friend. Before going missing, Alice stated that Arian's husband murdered her and transformed into her with a mysterious potion. After that call, Alice also vanished. Max suspected it had something to do with the strange X card, so he devised a daring plan to break into Leo's house and collect more evidence. Max decided to scale the fence and enter Leo's house through the back gate. It was not a difficult task for a seasoned journalist like Max. He paid careful, stealthy attention to every detail, so as not to make a sound. It was fairly quiet inside. Perhaps Leo was sleeping. Fortunately for Max, the card had been left on the table. Max didn't give it much thought, so he picked up the card to inspect it. But aside from the letter X, there was nothing unusual about the card. Max stared intently, oblivious to the fact that someone was approaching. To be sure, Max quickly took a picture of the card with his phone, intending to return later to find out more, but Leo was unexpectedly standing right behind him. Max didn't seem to notice that the card had turned a strange red color, and he quickly replaced it on the table. However, Max was unexpectedly struck in the head by a hard object at that time. Max began to wake up, not knowing how much time had passed. He was unable to move his hands and felt dizzy as a result. Max attempted to look over and noticed that his hands were chained up and he was straight up hanging. Max panicked as he looked around, knowing that his actions had been exposed. Max was startled when he noticed Leo approaching him. Even stranger, there was a red light around his feet, similar to the one on the X card. At this point, Max noticed that the card glowed when Leo appeared, which was strange. Not stopping, the scene in front of Max perplexed him once more. In an instant, Leo transformed something into an iron chain with a sharp hook in his hand. Max swallowed until he choked on his throat. Sweat poured down his face and his entire body trembled. Leo smiled a terrifying barbaric smile, and a strange red light radiated from his body as if it was from hell. he stood in front of Max with murderous intent. Suddenly his hand gripped the top of the iron hook more tightly, and he approached Max slowly. His face remained expressionless, but barbaric, as if he were some cold-blooded killer, the embodiment of Satan. Max realized that even shouting made no sense. Max was so perplexed that he wondered if Leo would really kill him, and why did the familiar scene appear to be from his book? Leo then abruptly swung the iron hook and slashed at Max. His expression remained barbaric without changing. The blood splattered everywhere. After all the slashing, the killer paused and smiled gloatingly. At the point, Max came to his senses and howled angrily. He believed that he had died. It didn't stop there. Leo was a monstrous person, and he continued to torture Max again and again. Max was terrified. Black blood flowed out of his mouth, which made him feel a strong, fishy taste on his tongue. Finally, the iron hook pierced Max's neck with the other two sharp ends, causing him to struggle painfully and gradually losing consciousness. Max was terrified, as if something was being transmitted to the inside of his body, causing him to lose consciousness, unable to think and no longer feeling any pain. Max awoke startled, realizing it had all been a dream. At the point, his head hurt like it got hit by a hammer. When he went outside, he was frightened by a sound and turned his head to see what it was. "Why were you following me?" Leo asked. Max was perplexed, not knowing what to say to Leo. At the point, Leo turned around and said, "Don't you want to know my secret? I would let you know right away." And Leo gave a savage smile. Leo admitted that he was Arian's husband, and his appearance had been borrowed from the male author who was a friend of Arian and Alice. And obviously, he changed the male author's figure, so no one knew where he was anymore. Leo then suggested to Max that he was willing to share the magical swapping potion with him, but on the condition that he kept it a secret. Leo leaned closer to Max's ear and said, "You could be whoever you wanted to be, and you could even have the same talent." Max was hesitant when he was confronted with temptation, and he stammered as he asked Leo if it was the X card. Leo immediately confirmed it. He said that the X card would help him get anyone's characteristics. Max was very interested when he heard Leo's statement. He would make a lot of money if he had the swap potion and the X card. Leo, on the other hand, appeared to be up to something as he smiled mysteriously. Then Leo said he'd lend Max the swap potion and the X card. Just as Leo was about to return inside, Max informed him that he had left his car keys in there and asked Leo to assist him in retrieving the key. Then Leo smiled devilishly as he turned to go inside. Leo took a light step towards the wardrobe door. He smiled menacingly as he pushed the wardrobe doors open with his hands. Inside the wardrobe, there was a person who had both hands and feet tied up and was unable to move. Unexpectedly, the person looked like Leo. Then Leo looked at the guy with wicked eyes and a smirk. "Hi Leo, you are so lucky. I have found you a substitute." It turned out that the person locked inside the wardrobe was actually Leo, and the man in his figure was Alice. Alice held the key in her hand and turned it around and glanced at Leo with a smile. It turned out that after discovering Arian's husband was in Alice's figure and knowing the secret of the swap potion, Alice killed him. Then, because she had inadvertently revealed the secret to Leo, she went to his house, tricked and tied him up. Alice couldn't bear the thought of killing her friend Leo, so she let him live, but she needed a substitute to swap with. And now, the victim would be Max. Of course, the X organization had tested the swap drug and released a large number of X cards into society, and we had no way of knowing what is real and what is fake. The Magical Potion. 2 years ago, everyone was shocked to learn about the tragic case of a woman who died from being pushed from a balcony located on the 16th story of a building. The prime suspect was identified as her husband. Alice couldn't believe her eyes. The girl in the picture was her closest friend, Arian. But what seemed unbelievable to her was, if her friend was supposed to be dead, then how could she ask Alice to meet her at their rendezvous for a talk? While Alice was still confused, Arian showed up and greeted her friend. Hearing Arian's voice, Alice instantly turned the screen off. In front of her was her closest friend, still alive and kicking, which Alice found hard to believe. No sooner had Arian seen Alice than she asked her friend about the plane tickets. Alice didn't know why Arian asked her to buy them at such short notice, but she gladly agreed to help her friend anyway. Alice had prepared everything at Arian's request until she read the news on the internet. Alice couldn't help but wonder what the heck was going on. Arian gratefully thanked Alice for helping her. Since everyone assumed that she had died, she couldn't get herself a plane ticket on her own as they already knew her face. Suddenly, Alice questioned Arian over the news being reported on newspapers and Roger's whereabouts. Alice told Arian the truth as she knew she could no longer hide it from her friend. Actually, the one that fell from the balcony and died on that day was her husband, Roger. Alice was in tremendous shock. She couldn't believe what she just heard from Arian. Arian knew it would be an utter disbelief to Alice. In fact, she had already visualized how shocked Alice would become to know about the incident. Arian then took out a pink potion bottle, saying she just needed to put her hair into it and poured the potion on someone, then they would instantly turn into her. Arian said she received this magical item from a mysterious man who dressed in black. She didn't expect it would work, then explained that Roger's death was just an accident. Arian started talking about her marriage. Roger was a soccer player, but had to retire due to his sports injuries. The man himself was also an abuser. That night, as Roger had already been wasted, he got furious and hit Arian badly while constantly scolding her. The man didn't even stop despite his wife begging him and screaming painfully. He kept hitting her as if he wanted to kill her to satisfy his anger. As the man was off guard for a moment, Arian pushed him aside with all her strength, trying to escape. As she was in panic, she made her way to the balcony outside the two's apartment. But Roger didn't let her get away easily. He angrily clenched his fists and walked towards his wife. The man showed no emotion on his face despite his wife begging him to stop. Now, as Roger had cornered Arian to the balcony, he aggressively rushed to her. but Arian was smart enough to slip through the gap underneath his arms, which made him furious. The man screamed angrily. He turned around, intending to chase after Arian. Arian was bewildered, not knowing what to do. With a reflex response, she kicked Roger on his injured kneecap, which caused the man to scream out in pain. Unexpectedly at that moment, the balcony behind him broke in half. Roger lost his balance and fell backwards. He fell from the balcony and hit the ground, died instantly as wooden pieces shattered next to his body. Arian was extremely scared. She collapsed. It was at this moment that she realized she had killed someone, and more tragically, the one she killed was her husband. In a twinge of guilt, Erin remembered about the potion bottle she'd received from the mysterious man. This could be the only thing that helped her get away with her situation. Erin used the potion to turn Roger's body into hers. Now all evidence found at the crime scene would be against Roger. People would assume that he had escaped in fear of getting caught by the cops. Erin sighed deeply after finishing her story, saying she had nothing to do with her husband's death as it was all his fault. Alice sensed something wrong with the story as she raised some questions on her mind. She recalled the day that took place a month before the tragic incident. Arian and her went to a hospital to receive Roger's medical records. According to the doctors, Roger's injuries were pretty serious. Therefore, it would be difficult for him to walk properly, which meant Arian could easily defend herself from Roger. She clearly knew Arian was trying to hide something, and for that reason, she demanded a friend to tell her the truth. The two were close friends who had never hid secrets from each other, so if Arian agreed to tell her the truth, she would try her best to defend her. Arian stayed silent for a while. It seemed like she didn't know where to begin. Eventually, Arian had to admit to Alice that she purposely kicked Roger on his injuries, with the intention of killing him as she couldn't put up with him anymore. Arian continued to justify her wrongdoings, saying she had to do it as the man wouldn't let her live either. Arian told Alice to give her the tickets. She reminded Alice not to tell the story to anyone if she didn't want to see her friend end up in prison. Alice remained silent and sighed as she had to unwillingly accept things no matter how questionable they might be. She took out the tickets from her wallet and gave them to Arian, saying there was no need for her to rush to the airport as it was still early for the flight departure. As she handed the tickets to Arian, she felt an uncomfortable feeling in her heart. Arian took the tickets from Alice's hands. She thanked her, but the way she delivered it created a vivid impression that the two were no longer friends. Alice started having more doubts about her friend. Arian was a kind, gentle woman who loved her husband greatly, but the woman in front of her now behaved completely opposite of that. Arian suddenly told her she would head to the airport now. Despite feeling suspicious of Arian, Alice had to put her trust in her as she was her closest friend. As Arian walked away, she lost her balance and almost fell. Alice rushed to her and asked if she was okay. Arian reassured her friend and continued to shamble, which made Alice feel worried. All of a sudden, Alice noticed a swelling on her friend's right kneecap. Despite feeling strange, Alice didn't bother much about it. Alice wasn't sure if she should continue to trust her one friend in front of her now. As Alice left, Arian let out a smile, looking delightfully as she finally succeeded in fooling her. The woman wasn't Arian, instead it was Roger in the form of his wife. It turned out that the one who received the potion bottle from the mysterious man was him, not Arian. That night, him and Arian had a fierce quarrel. The man had cornered his wife to the balcony with the intention of killing her. As the two struggled, the balcony broke in half and the one that died was Arian. After pushing Arian to fall, Roger quickly used a potion to turn himself into Arian, then asked Alice to buy him plane tickets. But little did he know about the close bond between Alice and Arian. As Alice knew her friend better than anyone, she recognized the strange behavior right away and knew it was not Arian. The woman then reported the case to the police. If her assumptions were correct, that would mean Arian had died and she had lost her best friend. Alice couldn't hold back her tears. She bursted out crying as she discovered the bitter truth. Recently, news about the arrival of a giant mouse started spreading. To set the record straight, Aboli, a news reporter, decided to investigate the incident. First, she went to see a shop owner. The man said he had seen rats crawling out of a manhole and breaking into his shop to steal food. The shop owner accompanied Aboli to the manhole from which the rats usually crawled out of. Aboli was a bit bewildered. Were the rumors about the giant rats all true? The shop owner told her another rumor about a young man being dragged down this manhole and eaten alive. It was true that there were many young people mysteriously disappearing lately. Aboli was a bit scared now, but she still wasn't convinced by the rumors. How could there be cannibalistic rats in this era? She wondered. So Aboli and the shop owner decided to hide somewhere near to the manhole to catch the rats. As midnight struck, there was still nothing happening. They got back inside the shop. With the experience of a professional reporter, Aboli believed it was a group of thieves rather than some giant rats. Aboli wasn't someone who easily gave up. She asked the shop owner to let her stay the night in case the rats appeared again. The man worried about Aboli yet gave in to her offer anyway. Before he left, he reminded her to be careful and contacted him immediately if any problem arose. Despite putting a smile on her face, Aboli still felt anxious, as she was just a woman after all. As the shop owner left the place for her, Aboli quickly looked around to find a safe place which gave her a clear view of the room to hide. It was 12 already. Aboli assumed the rats would come. But 1 hour and then 2 hours had passed, yet the rats were still nowhere to be seen. As it was already 2:30 in the morning, Aboli felt numb in her legs. It looked like the rats wouldn't show up. As Aboli was about to leave, she heard something pushing the door. Then noises of footsteps that sounded nowhere near to those of rats, but rather of a group of people. It was unknown where these people came from, yet their shoes were soaked. Aboli reached her camera as soon as she heard the noises. It was at this moment she realized what presented at the scene were definitely not rats. There wasn't any giant rat at all. This exclusive piece of news would certainly blow up once it came out. Aboli then took a risk, pointing her camera at the people when they were off guard, and took pictures of them, because no one would believe her story without seeing the evidence. Aboli saw many young men calmly stealing food from the convenience store, but there was this one particular guy in the group that caught her attention. As Aboli zoomed the camera to see the man clearly, she was instantly startled. He had a head that looked similar to that of a mouse, but it was gigantic. His mouth was dripping with saliva, and his eyes, well, they all looked so realistic. But anyway, Aboli was sure that there was no such thing as a group of giant rats like the rumors. Aboli sneakily took photographs of the group with the intention of preparing them for an article tomorrow. As the group eventually left, Aboli followed them to find their hideout, but lost track of them. She stopped by an announcement board to check the pictures she'd taken, then recognized someone familiar on a missing person notice pinned on the board. The man's outfit looked similar to the one with the giant mouse's head she'd previously encountered, but his face was scribbled so she couldn't see anything else. Aboli had a premonition that this one and the guy she saw at the convenience store were the same person, so she followed the address on the notice to discover the truth. She arrived at an old apartment building which happened to be the same place that initially spread rumors about the giant rats. Aboli went to apartment number 5 and saw an old couple there. The two were delighted to hear news about their son. They told her to get inside. According to the man, his son had disappeared for 3 months, same time when the rumors started spreading. As Aboli connected the dots, she told the couple that there was a likelihood their son had made up stories about the giant rats and convinced young teenagers who were at this age to commit a theft. The woman's face instantly changed color. She looked shocked. To her, Max was a gentle and timid kid, so there was no way he could do such things. Aboli was a bit confused. Did she just make false assumptions about the young man? However, it would be nonsense to prove him innocent just based on the attitude of his parents. Aboli decided to delay submitting her article as she wanted to make things clear on her own. After the encounter with the old couple, every day she guarded the manhole in order to see Max. At last, Aboli had witnessed a group of people crawling out of the manhole. It looked like the one wearing a mouse mask was the leader. Having been assigned to their tasks, they separated in different directions with the intention of stealing. Thinking this was a good chance to talk to the one with the mouse mask, Aboli tried calling Max. Her prediction had turned out to be true as the man was startled as soon as he heard his name. Aboli told Max that she wouldn't report his crime to the police. However, he had to stop it and return to his parents. Max didn't react to her advice at all. Right that moment, Aboli heard footsteps walking towards her. As she turned around, she instantly let out a loud scream. Despite having been seen walking away, the group of Max's accomplices unexpectedly appeared behind her like demons. Their faces looked extremely scary. They stared at her with their bloodshot eyes, not to mention that their faces were gaunt and sickly pale. They did nothing but slowly opening their mouths. Black creatures were seen moving and crawling out. How terrifying those creatures were, rats with demonically red eyes. As Aboli was still in shock, the biggest rat of them all aggressively rushed to her. Aboli screamed in horror. She panicked while unconsciously raising her hands to defend herself from the ferocious rat, but it didn't help her at all. Suddenly, Max ordered the rat to stop. The crazy rat, after taking orders from a young man, quickly became obedient. He jumped over the man's shoulder. Did he possess the ability to talk to rats? Max took off his mask and said he no longer wanted to return to his normal life. He even said the rats and the friends he had were his actual family. Aboli was amazed to see Max's face. It turned out what behind the mask was a deformed face. A keloid scar had covered half of his face, and that was the main reason why Max couldn't get back to his normal life. When Max was a 9-year-old kid, an accident happened to him that destroyed half of his face. But contrary to the thoughts of him receiving sympathy from his peers, all he got were the humiliation and harassment from them. No matter how good he was at school, he couldn't even find a suitable job. Max's parents told him to be at home as they could take care of him, but to Max, it was more like of a feeling of pitifulness. Now, telling Max to go back to his normal life was just exactly forcing him back to hell. To Max, these rats were his family. They didn't laugh at him, despise him, and most importantly, they did whatever he told them to. Aboli realized there was no way she could do to persuade Max to stop, because it would be like fixing an already shattered cup. Later, Max freed Aboli. A month later, the city had faced an awful disaster as the black creatures were seen everywhere. They took over every house, even flooded out the streets and bite people. No one could figure out how the rats had evolved to be this smart and aggressive. News about this rat plague was reported constantly. Scientists were invited to television programs to inform people on the incident, but no one seemed to have a logical explanation about the cause of this plague. Aboli was thinking if Max had something to do with this. The rats became more and more violent as it only took 10 of them to kill a tall, strong man. They bit a person from outside, then slowly crawled into their body and ate their organs, quickly taking over their host. The rats were no longer interested in eating rice, as they slowly transformed into ferociously cannibalistic creatures. Aboli couldn't hold in her emotions when she saw the footage. She truly didn't want to witness innocent people dying in such a painful way. Aboli decided to see Max in the hope of successfully convincing him to put a stop to this chaos. Lately, Max didn't bother to go outside at night, as he had assigned the alpha rat to do his work, while the man himself resting in his basement. No one expected there would be a large, fully equipped basement beneath this manhole. As the man was playing video games, he felt hungry, so he assigned the alpha rat to get him some food. Max seemingly had no idea what was going on with the world above him, as he greatly enjoyed his current life with rats. However, the alpha rat didn't follow his orders. After leaving the basement, it commanded other rats to rob people and kill as many of them as possible. After 2 days of investigation, Aboli finally found a small path that led inside to Max's cave. It was so brave of her to go there alone. As Max once freed her before, she believed he wouldn't hurt her this time. The alpha rat got back and told Max it couldn't get any food for him, then demanded him to make it smarter and stronger, hence being able to find more food for him. Max agreed with the offer. He reached to the mouse head latex mask and put it on. Then he spoke some bizarre spells. How could the mask make the rats become so smart and violent? As Aboli was hiding behind, she accidentally heard Max's conversation with the alpha, but quickly got recognized by the alpha rat. The alpha ordered other rats to come at Aboli. The vicious rats rushed to her after receiving the order, but Max instantly told them to stop. Then he walked to Aboli and asked why she was there. She knew Max didn't know about the situation, but still being extremely angry at him. She shouted at Max, saying the rats he had been nourishing were becoming murderers. Max was in shock to hear it. He didn't expect the rats whom he considered family would do such a thing. Max turned to the alpha and asked, "Is it true what this woman is saying?" The alpha rat had to admit its wrongdoings, but showed no sense of guilt as it just wanted to take revenge on humans. Max coldly walked away after he heard it, saying he would never return to the basement. The alpha was upset to hear it from its master. It didn't expect him to leave them in such a way. Max took Aboli out of the basement, leaving the rats behind. Max was indeed a good person. What happened was not entirely his fault. As the two got outside, Max asked Aboli about his parents. Luckily, they were still okay, or else he would live the rest of his life with deep regret. As the two talking to each other, they didn't know the alpha had secretly followed them. Crime reports about rats killing people were everywhere, which made him feel so guilty. He took responsibility for this and determined to stop it at all costs, even if it caused his death. Aboli asked Max if he could come up with any plan to stop this chaos. Suddenly Max remembered something. He said, "For years I've been thinking of myself as a victim who had been bullied most of this lifetime. But the truth is, I am someone who ruthlessly take away innocent lives." Max took off his mouse mask, intending to destroy it. He didn't know if this would help the city become normal again, but he still wanted to give it a try. However, no sooner had he taken it off than a rat jumped on him and took the mask off his hands. Thanks to Max, the rats had now become smart and agile. It ran away with the mask, to the two's amazement. The mask was brought to the alpha. It seemed like the rats no longer considered Max their master. The alpha then threatened Max to help them or else they would keep attacking people. Max's face changed color as soon as he heard the offer. He knew it would be a terrible idea to fight against them under this circumstance. Max told the rats they were all his friends, and that was why he didn't want them to commit such wrongdoings. The man then put on an act. He deceived them into believing that he would help them become smarter. The alpha rat was delighted to hear that. Obviously they had become much smarter than they used to be, but it was nothing compared to human intelligence. The alpha rat returned the mask to Max and told him to do his part appropriately. Max put the mask on, then spoke a mysterious spell while tears rolling down his cheeks. Suddenly there was a beam of red light emitting. The rats screamed in pain and then returned to their initial form. Max disappeared afterwards. His clothes and the mask were the only things left at the scene. Aboli had tears in her eyes as she witnessed Max's ultimate sacrifice. She ran to the spot where Max was standing and found a white mouse. The mouse had a reddish mark on his left face. It was Max. He had used the power of that spooky mask to make the rats return to normal. A few days later, Max awoke, but in the shape of a mouse. He asked Aboli to write a letter to his parents, as she didn't want them to feel worried about him. In the letter, Max said he was living in a great place and would never return to his parents. He told them to take care of themselves. The written lines soon became blurry as tears falling from his eyes. It was at this moment Max realized he had found his true family, but it was too late, as now he could only see his parents from afar.